Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan M. Rafaty, and I am proudly finishing off season 1 of the Let's Work Inclusively episode podcast. And today we have a very special guest. But before I begin, I want to just share what's so meaningful of having this podcast this entire year. And in this entire year, we featured leaders from across sectors of business, government, and nonprofits who are all doing the great work to advance accessibility and disability inclusion, not only here in North Texas and beyond. And today's guest, we have a special friend, a friend who I've gotten to know over the last several years, and I say about 5 years, almost 5 years, maybe more. But Jenny Stonemeier is the CEO of Reach Incorporated, right?
That's right.
And Jenny is a leader in not only in support of advancing the rights for people with disabilities here in North Texas, but also caring about issues like accessibility, transportation, employment, independent living, and many more. So without further ado, let's begin and introduce Jenny. Jenny, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks, Dylan, for having me. This is
So
so
Jenny,
fun.
tell me a fun fact about yourself, just to tease it off.
The fun fact is that I was born and raised in Dallas.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what part of Dallas?
Literally nearby. My parents lived in North Dallas,
Okay.
Preston Hollow area before it was Preston Hollow.
There you go.
Yeah. But grew up around here, moved to Plano in the early 80s.
Really?
So that's my secret, is I was actually born and raised here, been gone for 30 years, and so happy to be back.
Well, very good. And I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you are really expanding the work of Reach and the organization here. For those who don't know, this entire month of July is Disability Pride Month, and many don't know what Disability Pride Month is all about. So before I go into the Reach discussion, I would love for Jenny to give her perspective of what Disability Pride Month is and what it means to you.
So the first question that I answer is, why is July Disability Pride Month?
Okay.
And it is the month of Disability Pride because it's the anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act from 1990. So we are celebrating 36 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was so incredibly important to advance the rights of people with disabilities to live the life that they want to live, to access employment, to have access to transportation, to have access to basic civil and human rights. And so the celebration of the ADA has gotten expanded to become Disability Pride Month, and it's meaningful, it's important, it's a wonderful reminder of the reason and the foundation for the work that we continue to do.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And as somebody with disabilities, Jenny, and for those who are listening or watching, for me, it's about remembering the people who paved the way for the disability rights movement, not only in Texas, but all across the United States and other parts of the country and the world as well.
Right.
I will also share that this is also a month where I do a bit of reflection. For those who don't know, I was born on August 24th, 1990, a month after the ADA was passed and set to law. And then a couple of years later, it became enacted and people are following the law of the land. But also I use this month to reflect on the peers with disabilities, including Judy Heumann, Judy Heumann, who I consider the queen of the disability rights movement, who was also my mentor. And during my days of service on the U.S. International Council on Disabilities. And so I truly want to make sure we do not forget, but also continue to remember and continue the great work that is being done here in the disability movement. So let's bring it back to you, Jenny. And Jenny, can you tell a little bit about you and your story through disability advocacy and leadership?
Yeah. I started my career as a music therapist.
Okay.
I was working with people with disabilities, complex disabilities. I graduated from high school when the ADA was signed. I was the disabled kid who was never identified through school, but walked out of high school with my accommodations list and walked into college and didn't know what to do with it, didn't know how to access services or supports. So that's a really interesting kind of parallel of you in the experience. So I entered into a career of music therapy, working with clients who had been part of what we call deinstitutionalization.
Okay.
Big word.
Yes.
Complex history of keeping people with disabilities not with their families, not with their homes, usually in state-run facilities. And I was working with individuals who had been part of the civil rights movement to get folks out of those institutions. And I became very quickly aware of the struggles that that people with disabilities faced in terms of wanting to live their own life, wanting to navigate, live where they wanted to live, with whom they wanted to live, and how they wanted to live. And that became sort of the spark for the rest of my career, getting a master's degree in child and family law, understanding policy, working in federal policy and education and employment.
Yeah.
And now for the past 4 years have been leading REACH, which is a Center for Independent Living, not providing residential services for people with disabilities, but providing the supports and the navigation assistance so that people with disabilities can live independent and self-directed lives.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about who the people you serve within REACH.
We ask 2 questions.
Yep.
When people come to us for services. Do you have a disability?
Okay.
Yes. Do you have goals that you want to achieve? Yes. Come on in. Let's go. Let's get to work.
Yeah. And you actually have, you really not only symbolically serve our community, but you also represent it in your own organization. So tell me a little bit about your workforce within REACH as well.
One of the amazing things about Centers for Independent Living, and it is actually a mandate that's part of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which is the law that was signed. Judy Heumann was, instrumental, feels like an understatement in getting the regulations for the Rehabilitation Act.
I would say pioneer.
Signed into law. But one of the core features of the Rehab Act was the establishment of Centers for Independent Living. And the law mandates that we are governed, so our board of directors, led, myself, our leadership team, and staffed by at least 51% people with disabilities. So I have a workforce staff of 18 to 20. We are 76% disabled people. We experience disabilities in a variety of ways, myself included. My board is also over 80% people who identify as having a disability. And there's that component of, we understand what those navigational challenges are because we're facing them as well. Yeah. And in varying degrees. Everybody has their own experience, and we really want to honor that and meet people where they're at. But we can also say, yeah, man, I couldn't understand anything on that call because there wasn't captioning, or the audio was challenging, whatever that might be. So we have that lived experience and feel that really helps people come to us to be vulnerable, to say, I need help with something. And we're like, yeah, come on in, let's figure it out together. We might not have the answer. Yeah. But we're going to help people find the answer and navigate it for themselves.
So for those who don't know, earlier this year through the podcast, early in the first couple of episodes, we talked about the importance of representation, not only in leadership capacities, not only in staffing, but also in board roles. Yeah. And having board seats led by people with disabilities, especially when you are directly serving and or indirectly serving people with disabilities in your communities. And I was really emphasizing on that. Yeah, corporate, there's work to be done, but in the nonprofit world, we got to practice what we preach, and no better way to do that with representation. And so I really appreciate Jenny's insight and direction, and really applying policy and then putting that into actionable form. So I appreciate that, Jenny.
Thanks.
So I want to make sure the audience understands, you know, Jenny is truly passionate, and she does it in unique ways. And one of those unique ways is how she spells it out for us. And so, can you spell out what what motivates you to do this work? What, not only just lived experience, but through this journey, what motivates you to continue to push forward?
I had a client when I was very, very early in my career, and he had lived in an institution most of his life. He used a wheelchair to move around. He had a disability that caused him to have seizures quite a bit. He was the sunshine. He was an amazing human being. And I was coming to him as a music therapist, and I had my literal bag of things that we could do.
Yeah.
He lived in a residential psychiatric facility on the North Shore of Chicago suburbs, and he used a wheelchair. He was on the second floor of this facility, and all he ever wanted to do was go sit in the sunshine. Very simple, not complicated, not demanding. A residential psychiatric facility, as you might imagine, can be a pretty chaotic environment, and staff their hearts were in the right place, and they struggled to meet the needs of everyone that was in their care. And Kenny, my client, was one of those people who just had some really basic needs that needed to be met. I wasn't allowed to take him out. I wasn't a staff member, so we couldn't go. Staff didn't have time to take him outside. He needed to have somebody with him. He wasn't allowed to use the elevator on his own. I came in to see him one day. It was wintertime in Chicago. You can imagine kind of how long it had been since any of us had seen the sun. Came in one day and walked into his room. The door was pulled closed. He was usually out in the community, in the environment. I'm looking for him, and I knocked on the door, and I said, "Kenny, it's me. Can I come in?" And he said, "I don't want to see you." And I said, "Why? What's going on?" And after some time, we talked through the doorway, and I finally came in, and he was in bed, naked, tied with soft restraints by his wrists and his ankles, and had been put there as punishment because no one had taken him outside, and he was frustrated. He just wanted to go outside. He had thrown himself and his wheelchair down the stairs because he wanted to go downstairs to go outside. And I had some passionate responses. Nearly lost my job over it. This guy wasn't asking for anything. He just wanted to go sit in the sunshine. And that experience, that man has been the anchor of my work for the past almost 30 years. Because how hard is that? How complicated is that when you think about dignity and humanity and health and well-being? All he wanted to do was go sit in the sunshine, and nobody had time for that. And Kenny is a part of my worldview, is a part of my advocacy. He is a part of the root of my work, because I know that Kenny's story represents one of hundreds of thousands of stories of people with disabilities who haven't been able to do the most basic things that they want to do in their lives. Yeah. And if I can do anything in my life and in my career and in my work to make that easier for people, that's my goal. Yeah. That's my driving force in day-to-day business and work and leadership and peer connections and colleagues.
Well, Jenny, I really appreciated that worldview perspective, because a lot of people sometimes need to basically see and walk in people's shoes. And I want to take a quick moment of pause because this is a very, for some, could be hard to hear. For those who are listening or watching, I want to give them a moment of a pause to allow them to take a deep breath. And if you want to do it, take a deep breath for yourself. I think that would be great just to calm our senses.
Yeah.
So let's take a moment. Thank you. All right. Well, I wanted to do that because, it's not easy to take stories like this, and for a lot of people, it's hard to navigate unless you either lived it or know somebody who's lived it.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of my own personal story, but it happened to be more in education settings. And for those who don't know, I'm a graduate of special education, went through special education classes in a large school district here in the area. And that journey was not easy. And one of that journey, Jenny, was the teachers will talk at me, not with me. And so it was not really hearing it from a student's perspective. It was hearing from an administrative perspective and what they thought was best. Although good intentions,
Right.
it's just sometimes it's harder to navigate that journey without a student's perspective, especially in special education. So let's lean into the disability pride, collaboration, and employment segment.
Yeah.
Why is meaningful employment so important in your eyes?
Oh, I mean, why is meaningful employment important to anybody? Right? I mean, it's disabled, non-disabled.
Yes.
Meaningful employment is valuable for any of us to feel that we have a purpose, to feel that we're making a contribution, to feel that we have value to contribute to
Yes.
something.
Yeah. And what do most people with disabilities love about employment?
Getting a paycheck. Getting a paycheck, having access to healthcare,
Yes.
having vacation,
Yes.
having a social network at work that's
Yes.
beyond, that's different, right?
Yeah.
The opportunity to learn, grow,
Yes.
advance. I mean, all of the things that we all find valuable about it's not just work, it's a career.
Yes.
And that's what people with disabilities, myself included, are
Yeah.
looking for.
Now, with the employment side of things, let's talk about the access to affordable housing and transportation. In those eyes, those are some unique challenges that every community is facing through,
Yeah.
but especially more challenging for those with disabilities. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yes. I can actually tell a story from Reach, which is we had an employee who needed accessible housing because she used a mobility device, and she was an incredible employee. I loved having her on my team. And the Dallas housing market pushed her out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
She wasn't, and she had her own transportation. She had a vehicle that was adapted. She could drive herself to and from work, which was like one half of the equation of
Yeah.
being able to maintain competitive employment. Is you've got a place to live and you've got a way to get to work.
Yeah.
She had that component, and the housing market pushed her out because she could not find safe, accessible, affordable housing.
And add security to that too.
Right.
Safe and security in
Yes,
that
right.
regards. And we actually a year and a half ago, right? Year and a half ago, we actually did a community forum together.
Yep.
And we highlighted some of those issues that our community faces, specifically within the Reach network.
Right.
And so one of those discussions happened to be affordable housing, and especially, which is a complex system that we have today, especially with vouchers. And that's a whole nother debate of discussion. But I wanted for people to understand that although there is a system out there, is not necessarily equitably created for people with disabilities and by people with disabilities.
And there's tremendous investment in
Yes.
affordable housing in the Metroplex
Yes.
that has been spearheaded by housing rights people, right, like low income housing advocates, and those all of those movements have been really lifting up the issue of
Yes.
ensuring affordable housing, and the accessible component of that often gets left off, which is
Yes.
concerning, and an opportunity for collaboration,
Yeah.
right? Like part of the whole conversation for us today is to talk about collaboration
Yeah.
and where that work needs to take us in the future. And maybe that's one of the items.
Well, and it's funny that that was going to be my next question.
sorry.
So tell me more about what can businesses and or communities do to elevate the conversation. That's number one. Number two, to expand access and opportunity.
Yeah.
And then number three, execute it.
Right. So if we all think of ourselves as members of a community, that includes residents,
Yep.
right? Residents, taxpayers,
Yep.
families, the community. It also includes employers. It also includes businesses. It also includes faith communities. It includes the school districts. It includes the community infrastructure and municipalities.
Yep.
Every single one of those groups has an interest, a vested stake
Yes.
in ensuring that people with disabilities can access their community, can access their businesses, can contribute to their workforce needs.
Yes.
We know that there's tremendous needs for workforce in the DFW region, and it's only going to grow in demand. And people with disabilities are fabulous candidates for those jobs, but they're not going to be viable candidates if they can't afford a place to live that meets their needs and they can't get to the job. Mm-hmm. And it's really that everyone has to understand that they're a stakeholder in this issue, even if they're not a disabled person, they're not a family member of a person with a disabilities. They feel as though maybe that's not their interest to represent. But if you think of it as it's in the community's interest, it changes that frame a little bit and makes it hopefully a little bit easier for people to engage on these issues.
Now, for those who don't know, REACH is a proud partner of the North Texas Disability Chamber, and we collaborate in various different ways. But we have two like-minded visions, I would say, but we operate differently in structure.
Very.
And so I want to know, Jenny, in your eyes, why is collaboration so important to you and the organization you lead? And why does organizations like the North Texas Disability Chamber help elevate that conversation?
Absolutely. REACH is going to celebrate its 40th anniversary in 2027.
Congratulations.
Which is a remarkable feat.
Yes.
We have been historically and continue to be largely funded by federal funds. And while those allow us to provide incredible programs in the communities and in the county, the 4 counties of the DFW Metroplex, it also creates a lot of constraints on the kind of work that we can do appropriately, right?
Yeah.
Good stewards of federal dollars. We absolutely support that. Our partnership, REACH's partnership with the North Texas Disability Chamber, allows us to partner in ways that are outside of the allowable uses for our federal funds. We can come together and attend an event and meet the benefit for us, and I hope is the benefit for the rest of the attendees, is that it's this incredible cross-section of people from the community at these events, and kind of held together by a really kind of eye-opening speaker or topic, fireside chats, the elected officials, the people that you convene and the chamber convenes in those events are curated and intentionally put together to create opportunities for collaboration, opportunities for you guys need to meet each other.
Yes,
Sort of the professional matchmaking of you guys both have really cool ideas and need to spend some time talking with each other. And
then one thing I always say, there's a mantra I always use is, show up, be present, and show out. And our organizations are starting to show up. And they are very much being present, and they're and from outside looking in, and I attended the Hugs Cafe new headquarters grand opening, and I immediately saw people who I first met through the chamber at events and so forth. And it reminds me that this work is important and that we bring people like Reach and organizations like Reach and others and other leaders
Yeah.
come to the room and actually just start a conversation. And then hopefully you guys meet offline. And then eventually you guys see the work that you guys are doing.
Right.
And then turn that into a potential long-term collaboration. A great collaboration that we've got involved with was the mobility thing that was happening in the trolley, right? The trolley in Dallas.
In Dallas,
Yes.
yeah.
And so that kind of collaboration came to fruition. And then, of course, as of late, there was a discussion about the DOJ memo.
Yeah.
And Jenny reached out, and of course, we there's certain things we can and cannot do as a nonprofit, but personally, I issued a statement, and that has garnered some traction as well as the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you highlighting that because I think it's important that you don't just hear from me, but you hear from other leaders who see collaboration as a great tool for increasing access and opportunity, not only for organizations, but the people we serve. So I want to go into commercial break. For those who don't know, this year we're celebrating 5 years of impact. And that 5 years of impact doesn't come easy. And part of that is because of a lot of the sweat equity that has been poured into initially to grow this organization. This year we're celebrating 5 years, but through that, we want to do that through our annual awards luncheon that's going to be on Thursday, September 3rd. And we're finally going into a hotel ballroom. There are tickets available that will be launched in the next week. We're asking for sponsorship opportunities. If anybody wants to sponsor, part of that festivities, we will have a wine pool, a liquor pool. We'll have a silent auction items. If you have auction items that you want to donate to contribute to the greater silent auction items. But keep in mind, this is not your typical gala because we are more of a plated luncheon event. We will have a mocktail reception beforehand. And the reason we do it during lunchtime is because we have a lot of corporate partners who don't typically go to your traditional evening gala events. And so we want to create a space that is welcoming and inviting so that everybody can be a part of it. So save the date for Thursday, September 3rd at Hilton Granite Park in Plano, Texas. Tickets and information will be available shortly. Well, thank you all for tuning in to our commercial segment. So now we're going to pivot over to looking ahead. And this is basically leaning toward the call to action and so forth. Jenny, looking ahead, what gives you hope about disability inclusion in the future?
It's hard to find. I'm not going to pretend. It's hard to find. And truly, the thing that gives me hope is the North Texas community.
Yeah.
I said I had been gone for 30 years. My career had taken me elsewhere. I'd lived in the Midwest. I'd lived on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Coming back to Texas felt more like home than any time growing up. The event and the moment that really crystallized all of that for me was the first year that I experienced North Texas Giving Day.
Yeah.
And watching a community raise, last year it was over $70 million for nonprofit organizations.
For 3,500 nonprofit organizations.
For 3,500 nonprofit organizations in one day.
Yeah.
Is an astounding... It's an astounding image of the generosity of a community.
Yeah.
It's an astounding image of the support that Communities Foundation of Texas and other philanthropic organizations have invested in supporting the nonprofit community. I had friends and colleagues who said, "What, you're going back to Texas?" And I was like, "You're only looking at the stereotypes of Texas. You don't know what it's like as a community. It's incredibly generous."
Yeah.
Those kind of moments of people showing up for a community, for a cause, for an issue that matters to them, not just showing up physically, but showing up with a wallet and a check and generosity in ways that are beyond measure. Those are the things that give me hope.
And can you pivot more to your leadership? What is one lesson that you could advise other leaders, either in government, business, nonprofit, you name it, from your throughout your career? What is one leadership lesson could you provide for other leaders?
I think that I think the most important and probably the most humbling lesson that I've learned as a leader was I don't have all the answers. And then the relief of I don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
I have colleagues, I have friends, I have partners, I have trusted advisors, I have people that I know will tell me the hard truth when I
Yeah.
need to hear it. So it's not, we're not in this as singularly and as solitarily as we sometimes feel like we are. We've got people. I know, I'm going to use you and our relationship as an example. I know that I can call you and say, "Hey, Dylan, do we have a moment to talk about this?"
Yeah.
And you're going to say yes or no, not right now, maybe later, but
Yeah.
right, like we're going to work within the confines of the rules that
Yes.
we both have
Yeah.
to say, well, I can't do that, but I can do this, or
Yes.
not right now, but then later. And building that trust and having folks in your circle that you can count on, um, is really the way to make the heavy work lighter and build relationships and build collaborations and build the synergies that we need to really impact change.
It reminds me of the song "Lean on Me." And I think Bill Withers, and I will say recently I had a phone conversation for over an hour with Todd Marvin of My Possibilities. I've had another phone conversation with somebody else at Hugs Cafe and at other organizations. We feed off of each other. We learn things. We challenge each other. We sometimes speculate on ideas and stuff. But the idea again is really to lean on each other. And that too, I agree. I sometimes we huddle up our own emotions that we think we can solve it on ourselves. But reality is we don't have the answers. Typically, we have to lean on others who might have that answer or
And
that
we
connection.
just get so deep into the work. We
Yes.
just get pulled into the work, and
Yes.
it's you forget to look up and realize, like, oh, I'm not the only one doing this. I
Yes.
don't have to solve this by myself, or I don't have to write this by myself, or navigate it by myself, because there are others out there who are doing it. And I think that that's one of the amazing things that the North Texas Disability Chamber does, is create that space for those relationships to be built, because otherwise, day to day, doing that as a CEO of 4 offices and 20 staff and thousands of consumers that we're supporting in a year is overwhelming to have to do it. And you're creating the space where I can go and know that I'm going to make meaningful connections and relationships.
Well, as we close, could you share how people can contact you and what ways they can collaborate with you, and maybe an upcoming project that you might need extra support or guidance or direction? Feel free to share with your
Yeah, thank you. I think the best way to connect is through social media, which is valuable for everyone. It sounds like such a simple ask, and it really is such a meaningful way to connect with people, and to boost the brand and boost the recognition and get the word out to it. It really is the outreach mechanism that we're all dependent upon. So follow us on all of the social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of those. That's the easiest one. We are also, one of our biggest programs is a donation program where we accept donations from the community of gently used wheelchairs, walkers, rollators, folks that people sometimes need for a short time, or a family member no longer needs it because they have passed away. And those tend to stack up in homes. People don't always have a great place. We can accept those as donations. We inspect them, we clean them, we ensure that they're in good working order, and then we get them right back into the hands of people in the communities who need them, and can use them immediately.
That's good to know, because I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay.
We call it the durable medical equipment.
Okay.
It's not the big durable medical equipment. It's small, mobility
Yes,
devices,
yes,
wheelchairs, walkers,
yep,
rollators, those kinds of, but like a shower bench that
yes,
somebody needs that's got arms on it so that it
yes,
can help them stand up. That you
yes,
think about mobility, in-home mobility
yep.
kind of items. We accept donations, we clean them, inspect them, get them right back out into the hands. And for someone who needs those, that's the difference between going to the dining room to have dinner with their family.
Yep.
It's the difference between going outside and getting some sunshine. It's going to the doctor, going to the grocery store. Without those, people are confined and limited and unable to do what they need to do.
Well, Danny, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being on the show, and I really appreciate your insight, your perspective. I love the storytelling from your lived experiences. It truly highlights the work that you are doing. Not only that I can see from afar how that resonates with me and those who are listening and watching. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, this was the conclusion of episode 12 and season 1. And that is a major achievement, in my eyes, a major achievement to launch a podcast over a year ago, or just under a year ago. And frankly, I was a little afraid to want to start a podcast, but I would encourage everyone to just start with one. And you never know what the kind of journey you might go on and embark on. And so stay tuned for season 2, which will happen next month. And we're expected to feature some interesting guests who come from different backgrounds, not necessarily in the disability world, but can serve and represent our communities in unique ways. As you all know, the July is Disability Pride Month. I encourage you to do a simple Google search on Disability Pride Month. Also learn about Reach and what Jenny is doing and her team is doing in North Texas, and find ways to collaborate and expand access and opportunity for people with disabilities. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. We're going to be kicking off some great things next season, as well as to like and share and let people know about the Let's Work Inclusively podcast. And remember, together we can create communities that build a sense of belonging while creating access to opportunities like employment, workforce, transportation, and so forth. Until next time, my name is Dylan Rafferty, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody.